My dear students, as now we are reading lesson 2 Dear, written by Leo Tolstoy. As in this lesson we read about a king of Monaco, and as it is said, it is a toy kingdom. It's a toy kingdom where actually there should not be a king, there is a king, and there is an army. Altogether it is 60 people, and there are generals, courtiers, bishop, and army. There are also taxes imposed on tobacco, wines and spirits, and an individual tax, and which was not possible to collect required revenue. There he had given permission to open gaming houses. There people played the game roulette, and king used to get his own share. Even he too had the sense it was a dirty thing, but no other option. There also he had his own coronation, levies, and laws, everything, but only on small scale. Everything was going on fine. The king was also happy, people were also happy, and he was earning his income. People were busy in there doing work. But further, what happened, we will discuss in our today's class. There was, he has his own coronation, his levies, his rewards, sentences and pardons, and he also has his reviews, councils, laws, and courts of justice, just like other kings, only all in a smaller scale. Everything he had only on a smaller scale. Now, it happened a few years ago. In today's class, we will read from this. Now, it happened a few years ago, a murder was committed in the toy princess domains. The people of that kingdom are peaceable. And such a thing hadn't happened before. The judges assembled with much ceremony and tried the case in the most judicial manner. There were judges, prosecutors, jurymen, barristers. They argued and judged, and at last they condemned the criminal to have his head cut off as law directs. So far so good. Next they submitted the sentence to the prince. The prince read the sentence and confirmed it. If the fellow must be executed, execute him. If the fellow must be executed, execute him. Everything was fine. But here, there created one problem. That is, now it happened a few years ago that one murder was committed. That incident had taken place in the toy kingdom, in this toy princess domains. The meaning of domains is here territory or area. Or region. His region. In his area or in his territory, princess domains. The people of that kingdom are peaceable. Peaceable means very peaceful. They are very peaceful, away from all conflicts and confrontations. People, they are known for what? Their peacefulness. And such a thing hadn't happened before. That kingdom or the king never experienced such type of experience before. So now the judges gathered and with much ceremony, because the first time this type of incident had happened, with their own seriousness, and tried the case in the most judicial manner. Tried the case means studied the case, discussed the case, analyzed the case. Okay, so they studied the case. They have gone through the case in the most judicial manner according to the rules and regulations established in the toy princess domains. Who assembled there? The judges were there and prosecutors, prosecutors in the sense lawyers. Lawyers were there, jurymen, the one who give judgment or verdict, the one who give judgment or verdict, jurymen, we call jurymen. Jurymen. Okay, here gives the one who gives verdict, verdict it is called, verdict. And barristers, advocates, they are gathered, judges, lawyers, the one who gives that verdict as well as advocates. They argued and judged. Argued in the sense among themselves, they discussed. Argued means discussed on the issue. What was the issue? The murder which was committed in the toy princess domains, and condemned, judged, and at last they condemned the criminal. Finally they decided. What was their decision? Condemned the criminal to have his head cut off. To have his head cut off, as the law directs, according to the laws, clause and regulations of the Monaco, of the state called Monaco. Murderer's head must be chopped off, cut off. His head cut off according to the law, as law directs. So far so good. Finally decision was taken, judgment was given. Next they submitted the same sentence. Here submitted the same sentence in the sense punishment, mode of punishment, sentence. They submitted the punishment. What was the punishment? Punishment to whom? To the prince. All these judges, jurymen, prosecutors and barristers, the men who are very expert in this legal field, in laws, they finally submitted the report. The prince read the sentence. The prince had gone through the sentence or the decision which was taken by this group, and finally said, confirmed, if the fellow must be executed, and execute him. Must execute him. Execution it is. That is an official the thing which takes the punishment called death sentence. That is death sentence. That is called execution. Execute means chopping off his head. Here what is? The murder was committed in his toys princess domains, which was not, the problem was not there earlier. That is why all these men sat across and finally decided. What was the decision? To have his head cut off. Then submitted the same sentence to whom? To the prince. Prince also confirmed and said, if the fellow must be executed, execute him. Do this one, perform this one. This is words. And finally the judgment was given. Then, my dear students, there was only one hitch. There was only one hitch. What is that hitch? That in the matter, that was, they had neither a guillotine nor guillotine for cutting heads, nor an executioner. The one who carries out the death sentence is called executioner. The ministers considered the matter and decided to address an inquiry to the French government, asking whether the French couldn't lend them a machine and an expert to cut off the criminal's head, and if so, would the French kindly inform them what it would cost. The letter was sent. A week later, the reply came, a machine and an expert could be supplied. See here, a machine and an expert could be supplied, and the cost would be around cost would be 16,000 francs currency, francs, 16,000 francs. This was laid before the king. The same thing was laid before submitted to the king. He thought it over 16,000 francs, exclamatory mark it is, 16,000 francs. The wretch is not worth the money. The wretch is not worth the money. The wretch is not worth the money. Said, can't it be done somehow cheaper? Can't it be done somehow cheaper? Why 16,000 francs is more than 2 francs a head on the whole population? 2 francs a head on the whole population. The people won't stand it, support it, and it may cause a riot, violent disturbances in the state. See here, already they had taken decision. What was the decision? To cut off the head of the criminal. So there was only one hitch. Hitch means a problem, a drawback, a demerit. Okay, it is called hitch. That is problem. What was the problem? Here problem was only one. There was only one hitch in the matter. There was that they had neither a guillotine. Yeah, guillotine means guillotine machine to chop off the head of the criminal. That machine. There was no machine for cutting heads off. No machine was there, and no expert executioner means an official person who carries out death sentences. Okay, that is called executioner. Neither machine nor an expert. Neither machine nor an expert. Executioner. The ministers considered the matter, they studied, that is why they decided to address, they sent an inquiry to the French government. They wrote a letter to the French government asking whether the French couldn't lend them a machine and an expert. They asked for a machine and an expert to do the same task. Then machine and expert to cut off the criminal's head, and if so, what would the French kindly inform them what it cost? What it would cost? What will be the cost of this activity or this task? A letter was sent. A weeks later, they received the letter from the French government that yes, a machine and an expert could be supplied. Yes, there is no problem in supplying a guillotine as well as an executioner. We can, machine as well as expert, no problem. But the cost would be 16,000 francs. What would be the cost? 16,000 francs. This was laid, submitted to the king. He thought it over, the king thought, over what? The cost? 16,000 francs. Exclamation, shocked. The wretch is not worth that money. Wretch in the sense here, that scoundrel, we call rascal or a criminal, the wretch. He is not worth the money. To pay 16,000 francs on his death, he is not worth for that money. Okay, then can't it be done? Can't it be done somehow cheaper? Make it still cheaper. Can't it be done somehow cheaper? 16,000 francs is more than 2 francs a head on the whole population. Means 2 francs in the sense, if we pay 16,000 francs, we have to impose 2 francs extra tax on the total population. Hence, he says, for that purpose, he has to increase the tax amount. That is why he said, people won't stand it. Here, won't stand it means here, won't support it. The people won't support it, and it may cause a riot, a violent activity, or that disturbances might take place, violent disturbances might take place. No, we should not pay 16,000 francs. So in this paragraph, there was only one problem. The problem was they had neither guillotine nor an executioner. Hence they wrote a letter of inquiry to whom? To the French government, and French government sincerely they wrote the reply, and they were ready to give machine as well as executioner, but it would cost 16,000 francs. Hence the king said, no, not possible, the wretch is not worth the money, can't it be done somehow cheaper? Hence, because for that purpose they have to increase the tax amount, people won't support, there might create or the problem might be created and people may cause a disturbance in the kingdom. So this is mentioned in this paragraph. Next, see, the kings should be firm on their decisions. Here how the king is going on changing his decisions, and how his courtiers and barristers, prosecutors and all jurymen are guiding him. Okay. So council was called. So for that purpose, so council was called. Once again, the meeting was called to consider what could be done, and it was decided to send a similar inquiry to the King of Italy. First it was the French government, now King of Italy. The French government is Republican, and has no proper respect for the king. Republican countries never respect monarch type of administration, autocracy. But the King of Italy was a brother monarch. Monarch means one man's administration monarch, and might be induced, might be forced to do the thing cheaper. So the letter was written to whom? To the King of Italy, and prompt reply was received. In this paragraph what happens? Once again meeting was called and considered what could be done, and they decided to send the same type of similar inquiry to whom? To the King of Italy. So because the French government is Republican, hence they won't give respect to the monarch or king, no proper respect for the king. That is why the King of Italy is a monarch and might support or forced to do the thing cheaper. Hence, so the letter was written to the Italian government, Italian king, and they received a very prompt reply from the King of Italy. Okay. So after French government, they are writing their letter to whom? To the Italian king. The Italian government wrote that they would have pleasure in supplying both in the sense machine and an expert, a guillotine as well as an executioner, and whole cost would be 12,000 francs. Earlier 16,000 francs. 16,000 francs a days of the French, and 12,000 francs it is of whom? Italian government, including travelling expenses. One need not pay extra travelling expense. It is including everything. This was cheaper. Of course, if you compare this with this one, this is very cheaper. But still it seemed too much. Still it seemed too dear. 16,000, it is already too dear. Now 12,000 is also too dear. Okay, so too much. The rascal, the scoundrel was really not worth the money. Whichever we pay 12,000 francs on that fellow, he is not worth for that. It would still mean nearly 2 francs, though we have to impose 2 francs more per head on taxes on each citizen of Monaco. It is forced to increase the tax amount, that is 2 francs. So size Italian government they wrote once again, reply came, very prompt reply came. They are very happy to send home an expert as well as the machine. There is no problem, but the whole cost would be 12,000 francs, and you need not pay extra travelling expense, and will be managed in 12,000 francs. Of course, this is cheaper, but the king says, no, 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 it is too much. Because the rascal was not really worth the money. So, if they do the same, they have to impose once again 2 francs more per head on the taxes. It is not so good, not so healthy, and not advisable. And further, the king is not happy with the amount which is given by whom? The Italian government. First the French one, 16,000 francs, and next one Italian, it is 12,000 francs. Now it's next. Another council was called here. Another council was called to discuss. They discussed and considered how it could be done with less expense. With less expense. Couldn't one of the soldiers perhaps be got to do in a rough and homely fashion? Rough and homely fashion. What is that duty? Chopping off the head of that criminal. To cut off the head of that criminal. Do it. If not skillfully, in roughly and homely fashion. I need not take that skilled or expertise, not essential. Rough and homely fashion, as we know. The general was called, for that general was called and was asked, can't you find us a soldier who would cut the man's head off? Can you find a soldier for us? Whom? The man who would cut the man's head off, who would cut the man's head off, beheaded. In war, they don't mind killing people. In war, they don't mind killing people. In fact, that is what they are trained for. They are trained for that only, to kill. So the general talked it over with the soldiers to see whether one of them wouldn't undertake the job, but none of the soldiers would do it. None of the soldiers would do it. No, they said. See here. Remember this one? No, they said, we don't know how to do it. It is not a thing we have been taught. In this regard, we haven't been given training. Okay. So, another council was called, meeting was called, discussed what should be done, and it could be done with, it must be 2 dear. It should not be 2 dear. Here, it must be very cheaper. That is why with less expense. And in that council, this was said to whom? The general. Couldn't one of the soldiers can do it in a roughly and homely fashion? Now we don't want a skilled executioner. Okay, skilled, very skilled or expert. An expert we don't want. Rough and homely fashion. The thing is that to cut off the man's head. But the general was called and said the same. The council told the general that in a war they don't mind. In a war they don't mind killing people. In war such things will happen. In war is meant for that only. In fact, that is what they are trained for. In war they kill, and they are trained for that only, to kill the enemies. So the general talked the same thing. The general talked it whom? Talked it over with the soldiers. Whether one of them wouldn't undertake the job, he told, whether one among you would undertake the job, one among you would undertake this job. What is that job? So, to carry over or to cut off the man's head. So undertake the job, but none of the soldiers wouldn't do it. No one soldier was not ready to do the task, because they said, we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to cut off the head. We are trained to fight, but not to cut off the head. Here it is not a thing that we have been taught. And you haven't been given training to us in that regard, how to chop off, how to cut off, how to behead. So we don't know. This training is not given to us. So we don't know and we won't do, they said. So still the matter became bit more complex. Indecisions and indecisions and indecisions. So creating much problem. Then what was to be done? What should be done? What was to be done? Again the ministers considered and reconsidered. They assembled a commission and a committee and subcommittee. See there. And at last they decided that the best thing would be to alter. To alter means change. To change the death sentence to one of imprisonment for life. Instead of cutting off his head, we can keep the criminal in the jail, or the prison, the cell. The death sentence to one of imprisonment for life. This would enable the prince, enable the prince to show his mercy, and it would come cheaper. This suggestion was given to the king. What was that? Then what was to be done? Again the ministers considered, reconsidered. They assembled committee, subcommittee, commission, everything. Finally in that committee, commission, subcommittee, discussion, deliberation, everything, amongst all these, finally they reached one conclusion. That is that at last they decided that the best thing would be to change from death sentence to imprisonment for life. Changing the mode of punishment. Changing the mode of punishment because they couldn't pay 16,000 francs. They couldn't pay 12,000 francs. Soldiers are not ready to do the task. So the king says it is too dear, we cannot do it, and better change. All committee, subcommittees, commission said that better change the mode of punishment from death sentence to imprisonment for life. And if we change the mode of punishment, and it is very good because it would enable the prince, it makes the king that he has shown his mercy. The king is very merciful. The king is a man of mercy, that had shown that mercy to whom? To the criminal. That is why he changed the mode of punishment. Instead of killing a life, he has changed the decision. So he might get that his own popularity, and it is very cheaper. The internal factor is very cheaper. Internal factor is it is very cheaper, and to show it can enhance your quality of mercy. And people, they talk it among themselves regarding your quality of mercy. Yes, they changed. Then see here, the king had to agree with the decision which was taken by the commission, committee, subcommittee, and the decision making of the assembly. Then the prince agreed to this. The prince agreed to this. Yes, he said, yes, of course, you are right. We can do the same. Let's change his mode of punishment from death sentence to imprisonment for life. So the matter was arranged. Arranged, changed. The only hitch, once again, there was one problem. There was another only hitch was, what was the problem now was that there was no suitable prison for a man sentenced for life. There was a small lockup where people were sometimes kept temporarily, small lockup. Okay. Hence, but there was no strong prison fit for the permanent use. However, they managed to find a place that would do, and they put the young fellow there. See the word, it is very important. The young fellow, the criminal. Here in this topic, the criminal is very young and healthy and strong, and placed the guard over him, not only criminal, and appointed one guard to look after the movements of this criminal. The guard had to watch the criminal and also to fetch his food from the palace kitchen. See the criminal, see the fortunate criminal. He got his food from palace kitchen because of the decisions taken by the king and his courtiers. Here the king agreed and said, and the matter was arranged. And once again there was a problem. What was the problem? There was no proper prison or cell or jail, proper prison to keep the man who was given that imprisonment for life, the punishment. There was a small lockup instead of prison. There was a small lockup where people were kept temporarily, okay, for petty thefts and smaller issues. There was a lockup and people were kept, that criminals were kept for time being, temporarily. And but there was no strong prison fit for it, but somehow they managed and to find a place. Finally they got the place, and that would do. They got the place which was fit for prison, and they kept that criminal in that place, and they put the young fellow there. Put the young fellow. The word is young fellow is used because still he is young, strong, sturdy, healthy, and he won't die soon. Think about imprisonment for life. Imprisonment for life. Placed the guard over him. The guard had to watch the criminal. The duty of the guard was to watch the criminal and to bring and give, fetch means to bring and give criminals food from the palace kitchen. Criminals food from the palace kitchen. So here this continued. The decision was taken. He was put here. In that they put the young fellow there, and God was appointed. His duty was to watch his movements as well as to give him his food from palace kitchen. Let's continue next. The prisoner remained there month after month till a year had passed. But when a year had passed, the kinglet, looking over account of his income and expenditure, one day noticed a new item of expenditure instead of income. There increased one new item in the list of expenditure. That is, this was for the keep of the criminal. This was for the keep of, they have kept the criminal there. It is for that. Nor was it a small item either. It was not small amount. There was a special guard, and there was also man's food for guard as well as for food. It came more than 600 francs in that year, in that particular year. See now how many years that the criminal is going to lead his life and to live. Still he is young, strong, sturdy and healthy, and he won't die soon. That is the problem. It came to more than 600 francs a year, and the worst of it was that the fellow was still young and healthy. How to manage, how to maintain? What was the mode of punishment? Imprisonment for life. The might live for 50 years, again 50 years. Now, my dear students, now calculate here 50 years into 600 francs. How many francs? Think it on. Once again, recall the decision of the king and his courtiers. When one came to reckon it up, when one came to calculate, when one calculated and told the matter to whom? The king. Reckon in the sense to calculate. Calculated. The matter was very serious. It would never do No, 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 it is not good. We should not continue with the same plan. So the prince summoned called the ministers and said to them. He called the ministers and said to them, and what he told. His ministers, my dear students, will discuss in our next class. Thank you. Have a good day.